Hey there, Bible nerds. Welcome back to Chapters and Chuckles by Kaye, where we dive into the Bible chapter by chapter. All right, so we are kicking off the book of Numbers. It's just a continuation of the book of Leviticus. So picture this scene. The Israelites are camped in the wilderness of Sinai about a year after escaping Egypt. God is preparing this massive nomadic community for the next leg of their journey. Over the first 5 chapters, we will see everything from a national census to a camping layout, from Levite moving crews to some holy water drama. It's the calm before the storm as God brings order, purpose, and preparation to his people before they set out. So, get comfy, grab your drink, and let's dive in. So, chapter 1. This chapter opens with God speaking to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of meeting. The divine command is essentially time to take a census. So that's right. Our epic Bible adventure begins with a giant roll call. Moses might have thought leading people through the Red Sea was tough, but now he is handed a holy clipboard to count every male Israelite over 20 who can fight. Imagine Moses and Aaron huddled over, parchment paper or whatever paper they're using, turning into ancient census clerks. Then they even get a representative from each tribe to help, likely to prevent the, oh, did we count your cousin twice mishaps? So it makes more sense. So each tribe's leader is named with some tongue twister names like Shelumiel, son of Zurishaddai. Now try saying that 5 times fast. Shelumiel, son of Zurishaddai. Shelumiel. Can't even. All these names in the Bible are so hard to say. I like to think Moses was grateful for the help. Counting hundreds of thousands by hand in the desert heat is actually no joke. So the counting begins tribe by tribe, Reuben, Simeon, Judah, and so on. Each clan parading by as their numbers are tallied. And then the person in charge for each tribe dutifully. I swear, some of the words I say, I feel like I'm not saying them right. But that person lists each tribe's head count. For example, Judah's tribe comes in at a whopping 74,600 fighting men. The largest tribe of all. So, go Judah, clearly winning the popularity contest here. And little Benjamin's tribe, by contrast, has 35,400 men. Not the smallest, but one of the runts of the litter. And speaking of litter, remember that Joseph actually has 2 tribes. His son Ephraim and Manasseh each lead a tribe, which keeps our count at the classic 12 tribes of Israel. By the end of the census, Moses has totaled up an Israelite army of 603,550 men. So, yeah, over 600,000 able-bodied guys that are over 20 years old, 20 and above. So that's about the size of a modern metropolis, all camped out in tents. That's a lot, and that's just men that are, able-bodied, not even the younger ones, and you don't even include the female and the kids and the elders and all of that. So, but that is why maybe that's why this This book is called Numbers in English. So we kick it off with a giant number that reinforces just how huge this community is. However, one group is conspicuously absent from the census, the tribe of Levi. Tribe of Levi. God instructs Moses not to count the Levites with the others. Why? Because the Levites have a special gig. They're in charge of the tabernacle, the portable sanctuary. Think of them as the full time staff of the divine dwelling, caretakers, transport crew, and security detail all in one. The Levites camp around the tabernacle and take it down and set it up and guard it from intrusion. So that's the tribe. That's their job. All about the tabernacle. Outsiders trying to barge into the holy tent would literally be put to death. No sneaking into God's house uninvited. So while every other tribe is being numbered for military duty, the Levites get exempted from the draft and assigned to Operation Tabernacle. In essence, God is organizing his people, warriors on one side and then worship caretaker on the other. By the chapter's end, the Israelites obey and complete the census exactly as commanded. So roll call done, and not one person skipped out on being counted. So at first glance, a long list of names and numbers might not seem spiritually inspiring, but here's a takeaway. Every person counted matters. God is highly organized. Yeah, very. He knows his people by name and by tribe, and he's preparing them for battles ahead. It's a reminder that even in seasons of waiting, Israel is still at Sinai, not moving yet. You know, God might be doing administrative work in our lives, getting things in order. Sometimes faith isn't all miracles and fireworks. It can involve spreadsheet and census counts, routines and paperworks, and all those other logistics that you need to do really. Because honestly, yeah, you can pray every day, all day, every day about what you're praying for, but it's God still requires us to do the work. You know what I mean? So yeah, if you want to be a millionaire, for example, let's just use that example. You keep praying about it, but you're not really doing anything. You're just being lazy at home. It doesn't matter if you pray a million times a day. It's not gonna work. You gotta do the work. Still. Anyways, what am I trying to say? I digress. So those mundane tasks have purpose. So the census in this chapter shows that each individual had a place in God's plan. They belonged to a family, a tribe, and had a role. Most as future soldiers, others as Levi ministers. Um, in our lives, we might feel like just a face in a crowd, but God knows our name and where we fit. Being counted is a metaphor for being recognized and valued. Also, God is a God of order, not chaos. This careful not chaos. So this careful organizing of Israel sets the stage for an orderly journey. So next time you feel bored by life's paperwork, remember God can use even the ordinary details to prepare you for what's next. All right, fun fact. Why numbers? The book gets its English name from the two major consensus taken, one here in chapter 1 and another later in chapter 26. In Hebrew, the book is called hang on, Bemidbar, 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 meaning in the wilderness, which is exactly where all this counting happens. Two names, two emphasis, numbers, and wilderness wandering, and both are accurate. That wasn't a very fun fact. I have another one. The big army energy. So the final tally 603,550 men is enormous. If you include women and children, Israel's total population could have been around 2 million plus. Imagine all of that. Imagine Moses leading all of that. That's crazy. Like, that is crazy. It's like, that is a country. To put it in perspective, that's like, well, actually, that's like the perspective, or that's like the population of a modern large city, actually. But camping, like all camping together. Imagine that, so many people. No wonder they needed serious, major organization. Yeah, and that is it for chapter 1. All right, chapter 2. After numbering the people, God turns into a camp director. Camp director. Talking too fast. It's time to arrange this massive crowd into a well organized campground. Think less chaotic refuge camp and more orderly military encampment. God gives Moses and Aaron a full layout of who camps where, and it's amazingly specific. The tabernacle will be in the very center. Surrounding it immediately are the Levites, the caretakers. Then, all around that, the 12 tribes are assigned to 4 sides: east, south, west, and north. Each side gets 3 tribes grouped together under a lead tribe's banner. It's like a giant plus sign of people with the tabernacle at the heart. On the east side, facing the sunrise, we have the camp of Judah, which also includes Issachar and Zebulun. Judah's banner is front and center here. Tradition later says Judah's symbol was a lion, so I imagine a fierce lion insignia flapping on the flagpole. Judah's group, being the largest, over 186,000 total, gets the honor of camping toward the sunrise and also leading the march whenever the Israelites set out. So it pays to be the big tribe. You get to go first and not eat everyone else's dust on the road. On the south side, the lead tribe is Reuben, joined by Simeon and Gad. Reuben's banner might have been a man or a mandrake. I don't know, who knows. But collectively, they muster about 151,450 men. They're assigned to March 2nd. Then in the center, right after those 2 groups, the Levites with the tabernacle will move out. So I love this detail. God's tent and those who set it march in the middle of the column. It's like a mobile core, protected on all sides. God's presence is literally at the center of the journey. A beautiful image of how things ought to be. On the west side of the camp, Ephraim leads with Manasseh and Benjamin as partners. These are the tribes of Joseph. And though they are smaller in numbers, which is roughly 108,100 total, they hold the rear guard's front, so they march out third when traveling. Finally, on the north side, the lead tribe is Dan with Asher and Naphtali. They total about 157,600 and are designed to be the rear guard, breaking camp last. Someone's got to bring up the caboose, and Dan's camp gets the job, perhaps carrying the lost and found items people left behind too. Just kidding, but I do picture some Danites doing a final sweep of camp for stray sandals and tent pegs as everyone moves out. By assigning each tribe a set position, God ensures no squabbling over prime tent locations. Everyone knows their spot and their marching order. The text emphasizes that each tribe camps by their own standard, with the ensigns of their ancestral houses. So imagine colorful tribal flags waving in the desert wind. Every family of Israel can look up, see their banners and say, yep, that's us over there by the camel shaped flag or whatever their flags were. So it's both orderly and identifying and no, identity forming. No one is an aimless wanderer. They literally camp facing the tabernacle on every side with God in view at the center. Yeah. So in true obedient fashion, the Israelites do exactly as instructed. They camp in their designated spots and break camp in the prescribed order when it's time to move. If you were flying a drone over the camp, you'd see a huge cross shaped formation of tribes around a central point. It's Camp Israel, arranged by Almighty God, the ultimate campground architect. And thus, this chapter shows us that even in something as simple as, where do we pitch our tents, God is in the details. And I really love this because I'm all about logistics of things. Like I think about logistics of things wherever, whenever. So, yeah. Anyways, so there's a powerful image here. God at the center of the camp. The tabernacle symbolizing God's presence wasn't off to one side or at the front only. It was surrounded by people. This layout reminded us that in our lives, God desires to be at the center with everything else arranged around him. The Israelites literally oriented their tents toward God's dwelling, a posture of looking toward the Lord. It prompts the question, what's at the center of our personal camp? Is it our own ambition, comfort, or is it God? Or is it money? Or is it God? When he's in the middle, our life finds proper order and balance. Another insight is the unity and diversity in the arrangement. Each tribe had its unique banner and place, yet um, all were part of one big square or cross formation. In community like church or family, everyone has their spot, their role, and it works best when we cooperate under God's direction. Judah couldn't say, now I want to camp west instead, that sunset view is nice without causing chaos. Um Likewise, we thrive when we appreciate our God-given position and gifts instead of coveting someone else's. There's humor in imagining tribal turf wars, but thankfully they obeyed and kept the peace by staying at their lanes, at least, at that time. Order can actually bring peace. Um, Lastly, marching in formation with God in the center teaches trust. If you were in the front, Judah's camp, you stepped out in faith, not knowing what lay ahead, trusting God was with you. If you were in the back, like Dan's camp, you left last, trusting that following God's presence, even from behind, was safer than running ahead of your own. Whenever we find ourselves leading, following, or in the middle, what matters is that God's presence goes with us. Right. Fun fact corner. Let's see. Fun fact corner. So the family flags. This chapter is the first mention of Israel's tribes camping under ensigns or standards ensigns or flags. Later, Jewish tradition filled in details of the flag colors and symbols, like Judah, for example, Judah lion on a sky blue flag, Reuben has mandrakes on red, and Dan eagles or snakes on green, etc. While the Bible doesn't describe the designs, the idea of each tribe having a banner became important. It's like each tribe had a mascot and colors, the original uh, tribal pride. Um, and that is it for chapter 2. All right, chapter 3, the chosen custodians. Um, Now we zoom in on the special tribe we left out of the census, Levi. This chapter is all about the Levites and their unique roles as God's chosen custodians for the tabernacle. Think of them as a mix between priests in training, temple guards, movers, and maintenance crew. It's a family affair, literally, because the Levites are all descendants of one of Jacob's sons, Levi. And here we get a breakdown by their family clans. First, we meet the priests, Aaron and his sons. Aaron is the high priest, and his male descendants will be the priests who actually perform sacrifices and rituals. We are reminded that Aaron originally had 4 sons, but 2, Nadab and Abihu, infamously died earlier when it's not funny, but they died earlier when they offered unauthorized fire before the Lord, you know. So only Eleazar and Ithamar are left to assist Aaron. These guys will supervise the Levites. Next, God officially designates the Levites to be wholly given to him for service. He explains that once upon a time, think back to the Exodus and Passover, God claimed every firstborn male in Israel as his own. But now, instead of taking all the firstborn sons from every tribe to serve him, God takes the entire tribe of Levi as substitutes. In other words, Levites will represent the firstborn of Israel. This is a big honor and responsibility. To make it fair, there's going to be a head count and even a redemption payment. But hold that thought. Moses is told to count all the male Levites from 1 month old and up, and yes, even the babies. The Levites are grouped by the 3 clans, descending the Levi's 3 sons, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Each clan gets its own special duty and camping spot around the tabernacle. The Gershonites, these guys number 75,000 males, at least 1 month, at least 1 month old. Or the youngest is 1 month old at least. They camp to the west of the tabernacle. Their duties, all the fabric and soft stuff at the sanctuary. That means the tabernacle tent itself, it's covering the curtains and hangings around the courtyard. Basically, if it's made of cloth or requires folding, the Gershon clan handles it. You can jokingly call them the curtain committee or the tabernacle interior decor team. They are under the supervision of one of Aaron's sons, Ithamar, as later noted. Imagine them carefully packing away the massive tent fabrics whenever the camp moves, like divine stage hands striking a set. And then the Kohathites. Okay, now I'm getting distracted. Counted at 8,600 males. They camp on the south side of the tabernacle. Their job is the most sacred and nerve-wracking. They are responsible for the holy furniture and objects inside the sanctuary. So We're talking the Ark of the Covenant, the table of bread, the lampstand, the menorah, the altars, and all the vessels used in worship. Essentially, the Kohathites are the holy movers. But there's a huge catch. They must never touch or directly look at these holy objects when they are uncovered, or they will die. That's how do you even like so whenever it's time to move, Aaron and his priestly sons have to go in first and cover up all the sacred furniture with special coverings like blue cloths, leather, etc. And this as described in chapter 4. Um Only after everything is wrapped like priceless china can the Kohathites come in to carry them by the poles. What if they accidentally touch it? Like, it's so scary. Um, but talk about, high stakes moving. One wrong touch. Zap. So Eleazar, Aaron's son, is given oversight of the Kohathites, likely triple checking, like did we cover the ark properly, etc. And then there's the Merarites, numbering 6,200 males. They camp on the north side. These are the heavy lifters of the Levites. Their charge is all the structural frame and hardware components of the tabernacle. Think, the boards, the pillars, bases, bars, pegs, cords, all of that. Basically the tent framework and fence screw. If the tabernacle were IKEA furniture, the Merarites deal with the Allen wrenches and assembly instructions. When it's time to pack up, they carry the big beams and sockets. It's grueling work. I can imagine. Can't actually I can't imagine, but someone's gotta do it. We can imagine the Maraites as the brawny folks muttering, "Did someone misplace a peg again? Like check under the altar. It's probably there." I can only imagine. When I'm building something, I always lose something, or I don't know, like I always lose something even though I put them, I arrange them in orderly fashion so I know where they are. And for some reason I always lose something. And it's always the Allen wrench actually that I always lose. So meanwhile, Moses, Aaron, and Aaron's sons camp on the east side, right in front of the tabernacle entrance. This is the VIP section, if you will. They guard the entrance and perform the daily sanctuary duties. Any outsider, non-Levite who tries to butt in, well, some fatal warning applies as before. God's making it clear, Levites only beyond this point. After tallying all Levites, Moses comes up with a total of 22,000 males from, 1 month old upwards. Now comes a fascinating exchange. Moses then counts all of the firstborn males of all Israel, non-Levites, also from 1 month old and up. That number comes up to 22,273. So the idea is that each Levite is taking the place of all firstborn Israelite in God's service. There are 273 more firstborns than Levites, which means we have an overrun extra firstborn with no Levites to substitute for them. So what to do? God instructs Moses to redeem those 273 extra firstborn by collecting a payment of 5 shekel of silver for each. So 5 shekels was the standard redemption price. So Moses gathers 1,365 shekels of silver in total and gives it to Aaron and the priests. This represents buying back those firstborn for the people. Imagine a brief ceremony. If your baby is a firstborn and didn't get a Levite assigned to him, they see Moses at window 3 with your 5 shekel fee. It's very administrative. but deeply symbolic. God owns all the firstborn, but he accepts the Levites um and a payment in exchange. By the end of the chapter, the structure is set. The Levites are officially installed as the guardians of the holy things. Each clan knowing their duties. Israel's worship and community life will rely on this dedicated team. And for the trivia lovers, the Levite clan's name, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari, will pop up repeatedly in the story as the story continues. So, just remember them. They're the unsung heroes carrying curtains, candlesticks, and tent poles through the desert so that everyone else can encounter God's presence. Yep. Actually, fun fact corner. All right. Fun fact corner. What's in a name? So the Levite clan have interesting names. Gershon likely means exile or sojourner. Very fitting actually, since the Gershonites carried the tent, emphasizing the temporary dwelling aspects. Kohath possibly means assembly, and they carried items that brought Israel together to worship. And then Merari comes from a word meaning bitter. Some, you know, biblical commentators note that Merarites had the bitter job of hauling heavy beams, perhaps making them a bit bitter indeed. I can't even imagine, you know, doing that job, just hauling all the heavy stuff. Oof, heavy work. Anyways, that is it for chapter 3. We're halfway. Alright, chapter 4. This chapter continues the Levites' theme, zooming in on the nitty gritty of their duties, specifically how to back up and move the tabernacle. If chapter 3 assigned the jobs, chapter 4 is the actual training manual for the job. It's like the ancient Levitical how to guide, and also includes a special census of Levites eligible for the work. Okay, let me just take a sip of my coconut water. All right. First, God tells Moses to take a census of Levite men from the age 30 to 50 within each clan. So, although there were 22,000 Levite males total, including infants, only those 30 to 50 are on active duty. This is interesting because later in Numbers chapter 8, it mentions, spoiler, it's going to be on the next episode, it mentions starting at 25, but likely 25 to 30 was an apprenticeship period. Anyway, they numbered them clan by clan, but the totals came at the end, so we'll get back to that. The Bible text then details the duties clan by clan. So Kohathites, Southsiders, holy object carriers. Their procedure is spelled out with dramatic caution. When the camp is set to move, Aaron and his sons must go into the holy place first. Then they take down the veil, that big curtain separating the Holy of Holies, and use it to cover the Ark of the Covenant. Then they throw a durable goat skin and a blue cloth over that, so the ark is completely concealed, no peeking. They do similar wrapping for the other sacred furnitures. The table of bread gets covered with a blue cloth, then all its dishes and utensils piled on top, then a scarlet cloth over that, and finally a skin covering. Wow. The lampstand, the menorah, is wrapped in blue cloth and skin. The golden altar, which is the incense altar as well, and even the tools and censers. Essentially, the priests are gift wrapping God's furniture for travel. Only once everything is covered and secured can the Kohathites come in. Their job is to shoulder these holy items using the carrying poles. They must not touch the holy objects directly or even see them, or else they will die. Um, okay, then the Gershonites. West Siders, curtain handlers. Their tasks are a bit less life and death. Moses and Aaron count the Gershonite men 30 to 50, then assign their moving duties. They are to carry all the um, curtains of the tabernacle, the tent of meetings coverings, the outer covering of the fine leather, the screen for the entrance, the hangings actually of the courtyard, the curtain at the courtyard gate, and the ropes. Basically, any woven material or ropey thing they pack. Ithamar, Aaron's other son, supervises them. The Gershonites get carts to load these fabrics on. Thank goodness, because hauling that massive tent by hand would be tough. You can picture the Gershonite crew rolling up curtains carefully, coiling ropes, perhaps folding that huge linen wall of the courtyard. It's like packing a giant circus tent. Yeah, that's a good visual for that. And they were the pros at it. Then the Merarites, the Northsiders, frame haulers, the heavy work. Now for the structural engineers, the Merarite men 30 to 50 are counted and given their duty, lugging the boards, bars, pillars, bases, accessories of the tabernacle and courtyard. This included a lot of heavy, clanky, bulky items. Imagine stacks of acacia wood board overlaid with gold and hefty metal bases. Each base was solid silver, weighing roughly 45 pounds each, according to Exodus chapter 38. That's a lot. They load up the pillars and planks into carts. Ithamar oversees them too, likely coordinating with the Gershonites, Merarites. Merarites, once you dismantle the framework, the Gershon guys will swoop in with the curtains. It's like, disassembling a portable sanctuary IKEA kit every time they move. It's a lot. If a Merarite teen ever complained, like, oh, this job is so boring, well, at least it keeps you fit. They're probably very fit. They had a clear list of every item they were responsible for to make sure nothing was left behind. Woo! So after, describing these assignments, the chapter ends by tallying the number of men in each clan eligible for the work. Kohathites, 2,750. Gershonite, 2,630. Merarites, 3,200. So total active duty Levites is 8,580. Moses, Aaron, and the leaders record all this, and again, it's noted that they did everything as the Lord commanded. There's a satisfying sense of, Roger, that mission accomplished in the text in the Bible. So chapter 4 might read a bit like a logistics manual, which again, as I've said, I love logistics. But it highlights how every little detail of moving God's house was orchestrated. God is essentially saying, this is how you take care of my sanctuary, with reverence, order, and each person doing their part. It's meticulous, yes, but also kind of beautiful in its precision. And perhaps even humorous to imagine, like an entire tribe whose daily grind involved packing and unpacking the same tent over and over for years. They probably got really good at it, the ultimate moving crew with a divine 5-star rating. All right. Fun fact corner. The let's talk about retirement plan. The Levites' service spanned from age 30 to 50, with some starting training at 25. So 30 to 50. So this means that at 50 they retired from heavy work. But it wasn't a useless retirement. That's nice. You're only working for like 20 years. Well, 25 years if you count your training. Yeah, but it wasn't a useless retirement. They could still assist their brothers in minor roles. It's one of the earliest recorded retirement policies. God recognized that carrying heavy boards at 55 might be too much. But I don't know. I have uncles who are even my dad. My dad is in his 50s and he's still good. So perhaps the older Levites became the mentors, giving advice. Maybe they're the ones who were training the younger ones, you know, what have you. But yeah, you retired 50. I'm probably gonna retire at 57. I think that's the earliest age I can retire. Anyways, that is it for chapter 4. Alright, chapter 5. This chapter shifts gear from Levitical duties to some laws about purity in the camp and personal conduct. We zoom out from the tabernacle to the whole community, addressing issues that could defile and disrupt Israel's camp. There are 3 main sections in this chapter: quarantine for the unclean, restitution for wrongs, and the infamous jealousy ritual for suspected adultery. Each section might seem unrelated, but they all deal with maintaining holiness and trust among God's people. Okay, 1. Removing unclean persons. And this is in verses 1 to 4 if you are curious. God tells Moses to command the Israelites to send out of the camp anyone who is leprous, has a discharge, or has become unclean by touching a corpse. Men or women, doesn't matter. If you're in a state of ritual impurity, you cannot stay inside the camp for now. Essentially, they set up a quarantine outside the camp until those folks could be declared clean again. This sounds harsh to modern ears, but consider. I mean, it's actually it makes sense. Like we did quarantine too during the peak of pandemic. Anyways, it makes sense. Uh, what was I saying? So, skin diseases or contagious conditions needed isolation to prevent outbreaks. Also, having the camp pure was symbolic of God's holy presence dwelling there, so that they may not defile their camp, where I dwell among them, says the Lord in verse 3. The people obey and move those individuals out until they recover. One can imagine the temporary, unclean camp outside the main camp, perhaps a melancholy place, but also hopeful, since, many conditions were temporary. The silver lining, this shows compassion through containment. Better a short exile than the whole community getting sick or defiled. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Second one is restitution for wrongs. So God addresses sin among people, specifically when someone wrongs another by breaking faith. The text implies things like fraud or theft. The rule is if you wrong someone, you must confess it and make full restitution plus 20% extra. And I talked about this in my Leviticus series. I actually went very specific on that. So anyway, so pay back what you stole and add a fifth as a penalty, apology bonus. Not only that this compensates the victim, but also serves as deterrent. If the person you wrong has died and has no next of kin to receive the repayment, you give it to the priest as, belonging to the Lord. Along with restitution, you are to offer a ram of atonement. to cover the sin before God. So this law ensures justice and reconciliation. All right, 3, the jealousy ordeal. Now for the longest and most curious section. A procedure for a husband who suspects his wife of adultery when there's no proof. So buckle up, because this is one of those cultural head scratchers for modern readers, but let's go ahead and unpack it anyways. It's called the law of jealousy. Here's a scenario. A husband gets a spirit of jealousy. He believes his wife might have cheated on him, but there's no witness and she hasn't been caught in the act. This could be a case where she actually was unfaithful or she is innocent and the husband is overcome with suspicion. In ancient times, without evidence, this kind of situation could turn ugly. A husband might retaliate violently or divorce her unjustly. Instead, God provides a ritual to bring the truth to light and, importantly, to protect both parties. Excuse me, under law. It's been 46 minutes. I thought this would be like under 45 minutes. Okay, so here's how it goes. The husband brings his wife to the priest along with an offering of barley flour. Notably, it's barley, a coarse, cheaper grain, and the flour has no oil or frankincense on it. Those luxuries are omitted, perhaps symbolizing the gravity of the barrenness of the situation. The priest sets the woman before the Lord, unbinds or loosens her hair, a sign of openness and perhaps shame, as normally women covered their hair. Um, the priest then prepares a concoction. He takes holy water in a clay jar and adds dust from the tabernacle floor into the water. So, yeah, it's essentially sanctified dusty water. This is called the water of bitterness, or bitter water that brings a curse. The priest also writes down the curse's oath on a scroll. The oath that basically says, if you have been unfaithful, may this water cause your belly to swell and your thigh to waste away. If you're innocent, may it have no effect. Then he washes the ink of the curses off into the water, mixing in the literal words. This potion is now a physical test. The woman has to take an oath agreeing to the terms, essentially saying, Amen, let it be so. If I'm guilty, I accept the curse. If innocent, I'll be free. After that, the priest offers the grain offering and then gives the woman the cup of bitter water to drink. Now we wait for the outcome. If she was guilty of adultery, the curse from the water is supposed to manifest physically. Her abdomen will swell and her thigh will waste away, which likely means she'd become barren and suffer a miscarriage if she was pregnant by the illicit affair, and possibly it's a terminal condition per tradition. If she's innocent, nothing happens and she is free and able to conceive children going forward. The husband is declared free of guilt in this matter, and the woman bears any, the woman bears any consequences of her guilt or innocence before God. The ritual is very unusual. It's basically an ancient lie detector test administered by God Himself. There's no natural poison here. It's dusty water, non-lethal in itself. So the idea is that God will miraculously intervene to make the truth known. In a time with no, CCTV or DNA tests, this was a solemn way to handle an otherwise impossible situation. It's important to note that this wasn't designed to condemn women. It was as much to protect a woman from an unjust, jealous husband as to potentially punish actual infidelity. If the husband was just being paranoid and she was innocent, this ordeal would vindicate her publicly. She'd drink, nothing bad would happen, and he'd have to shut his, mouth and presumably trust her. If she was guilty, well, it was basically letting God deal out the punishment since human courts couldn't for this certain manner. Um, but what if it was the guy who was the adulterer? Hmm. Anyway, so this is a serious and sobering ceremony, probably rarely used because who wants to go through that, right? The very prospect might deter adultery and also deter baseless accusation. Jewish tradition later suggests that if adultery was rampant or if husbands themselves were unfaithful, the ritual ceased to work or wasn't practiced, indicating it was meant for a high trust community under God's direct care. We don't hear of a specific instance of this ritual happening in the biblical narrative, so it's possible it was infrequent. Um, but its inclusion in the law um served. Oh, I lost where I was. Anyways, I'm back. Served as a strong statement. Marital faithfulness matters deeply to God, and so does truth and trust between husband and wife. Even in the camp of Israel, God was concerned not just with big national issues, but the intimate fidelity of a couple. Because a family breakdown or injustice, there would be also defile the community. It would also defile the community's wholeness, right? So this chapter might feel like a grab bag of rules, but the thread is community integrity. Okay. All right. Um, Fun fact corner. The holy water origins. So holy water is mentioned here. Many think of holy water as a later church tradition, but the book of Numbers, chapter 5, verse 17, explicitly has the priest take holy water, likely from the tabernacle's bronze basin, in a clay jar for the ritual. This is one of the very few references to holy water in the Bible. In this case, it's not for blessing people, but for this ordeal. It's actually the opposite. So, next time someone jokes that holy water isn't biblical, you can point to the book of Numbers, chapter 5, though it's not exactly being used to sprinkle babies or anything joyous. Um, yeah. All right, and that is it for this episode. Oh, so who knew a census, camping instruction, and some ancient social legislation could be so intriguing? Very intriguing, if I say so myself. So we've seen God organize a community from the top down, numbering the warriors, positioning the tents, assigning holy movers, and establishing rules for cleanliness and honesty. But we're only at the beginning. So far, everything's calm and orderly at Mount Sinai. Coming up next in episode 2, the story will continue as the Israelites prepare to actually set out from Sinai. What will we find? Well, a few sneak peeks. Nazarite vows. Ever wonder what it takes to be an ancient holy hipster with long hair and no wine? A famous priestly blessing that you've probably heard in church. And the spectacular dedication of the tabernacle altar with offerings from each tribe. So, don't miss the next episode where the action picks up steam. Silver trumpets blaring, a cloud leading the way, and perhaps the first of many wilderness adventures of the horizon. Will this orderly camp keep its holy act together on the road? We will find out. So, thank you for listening to Chapters and Chuckles by Kaye. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, follow, leave a review wherever you're, watching it or listening. And then you can catch episodes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And again, on Spotify, there's two podcasts there. Just pick the one that has, more episodes. Don't pick the one that only has 6 episodes on it. I'm still trying to figure out how to delete that one. But yeah, until next time, keep laughing, and as always, stay curious.